Hello guys, today on this channel we get back to the review of open source project Veto Deploy Veto, which I've started a while ago on this YouTube channel. There were 3 videos around that, and then another one. Today I want to talk about actions and show the example. So pretty recently in Laravel it became popular to structure the code into actions. An action is not a Laravel class, it's not a Laravel concept, it's just a PHP file, and you group those files into a folder and namespace app actions, and then you call those actions from wherever you want, from controllers, from jobs, or from wherever. And this again is only one of the options how to structure Laravel code, so it's an eternal question of how to structure the code. For example, in general there's MVC, so you have controller, model, and view, but then the logic somewhere in between. So controllers should be shorter, because their purpose is just to control the data from routes and then return the result. The model should be only about eloquent in theory, but then where do you put that logic? And often people use services, but I see increasing popularity with actions. So let's take a look at an example. And in this case, in the case of Veto Deploy, I want to emphasize not the actions only, but the structure of the folders. It is a project to manage, for example, databases, cron jobs, servers, PHP versions on those servers. It's a server management application. But different parts of those servers have different namespace related to them. So for example, if we browse through server folder, there's an action to create server, edit server, and get servers. If we go back and browse through, for example, database, there should be something similar. Create database, but also a few actions related to the databases. So the whole structure, it's not app actions and then 50 files or 100 files. The subfolder structure is also done pretty well. That pretty well, of course, it's individual. It's again personal preference. So some files may be structured differently in different folders. It's whatever you want. But let's take a look at one specific example. For example, create server action. And the interesting part here is that create server action also takes the responsibility of validation. And that action is called in the controller. I call that controller. It's actually a Livewire component, but it could be Laravel controller, and we will talk about Livewire in the following video about this Veto series. I want to discuss the Livewire structure separately, but imagine this is a Laravel controller and you have this. So controller or Livewire component just calls the action method and that's it. Controller doesn't care or know anything else. And then inside of the action there's the main create method, but also more methods to validate inputs, for example, like this. Then there's validate type, validate provider, create firewall rules. So a structure, kind of hierarchy of methods related to that specific action. And this is again one way to structure that. But you see the idea that actions are files, PHP classes that do all the job. Let's take a look at something else. Create database, for example. It creates the database, then there's separate create on server, which is probably SSH command to the server, terminal command, then there's validation inside. So the pattern is this: action class with the main method, and then validation methods or any separate extra additional methods supporting that specific action. What do you think about this pattern? I do have a course actually about structuring Laravel project, which is by far the #1 popular course on my Laravel Daily.com, because it's an eternal question how to structure the project. And in case of Veto Deploy, this is the first time I see actions being used so heavily and with validation inside. So let's discuss this approach. What do you think? Shoot in the comments below, and see you guys in other videos.